Whereas if we could somehow isolate out the people who didn't have any kind of genetic, influence here or anything else, then I suspect the impact would be greater. And among those who had the more genetically driven stuff, the effect would be a lot smaller.
Yeah. Yeah, I would predict that if you could do that, if you could parse people in advance, although it'd be difficult to know in advance, like,
Yeah.
which one's which, yeah, you would likely see a bigger effect to the extent it results in sort of optimal, sort of lipid lowering. That's another question, but that's more, uh, you're gonna have to draw a line in the sand. Well, what is optimal? Is it just less than 100, for example, for LDL, or is it more aggressive than that? And that kind of depends on other factors. So for another podcast. But
Yeah.
yeah, generally speaking, there are both direct and indirect effects of dietary pattern change on people's blood cholesterol levels. So, not only through weight loss, but also through just dietary pattern change in general. Exercise is much of the same way. So, exercise enhances the uptake and utilization of free fatty acids from the blood by active skeletal muscles. Yeah, your muscles use fat, right? And it consequently reduces the LDL cholesterol, triglycerides, and raises H. Pretty good effects from exercise, but generally speaking, smaller than dietary pattern
Yes.
changes, which are generally speaking smaller than medication
Yep.
sort of induced changes. As far as like what types of exercise are best, a really cool new meta-analysis came out from Smart in January of 2025. I've linked that in the description below. Yes, combined resistance training and aerobic training are better than one or the other. And there's a dose dependent relationship in sort of weekly training volume. So the more training volume that people do, generally speaking, the bigger reduction they're going to see. Again, it tends to be modest overall. But if you were wondering, like, well, should I exercise more or less as far as health benefits go? Generally speaking, if you can tolerate it physiologically, meaning that you are sort of well suited to the sort of training demands. Yeah, we think that more training generally is better, and that you should do both lifting and cardio.